Tatiana Tanya Tarasoff and Prosenjet Podar were both students at UC Berkeley. Podar was born in Banal, India, and came to America in 1967 to pursue a graduate degree. In the fall of 1968, they met at a folk dancing class. They saw each other weekly, and on New Year's Eve, they shared a kiss. Podar thought this was a start to a relationship with Tarasoff. However, Tarasoff made it clear that they were just friends. Podar went through an emotional crisis and began to neglect school, his appearance, and his health. He kept to himself, often always crying. His friends saw the distress Podar was in and recommended he see a therapist.
All right, Mr. Podar, how was your week? I know when we left off last week, you were in a pretty rough spot.
Well, I'm falling behind in all my classes. I hate all my professors. I don't really want to go out and hang out. I feel like I'm just sad and miserable all the time. I don't know, maybe it's my girlfriend.
What's going on with your girlfriend? What was her name again? Tanya
Tarasoff. So we met at a party, we kissed. It was nice, it was fun. We had a good relationship going on. And just all of a sudden she said that she wanted to not see me anymore because she was interested in other people. I don't even know what that means. Like, what is that? So, I don't know, you tell me. What is this? I don't know what to do. Just a lot of anger. Like, I want to kill her. That's what I want to do. I want to kill her.
You don't mean that.
But that's just how I feel. So I know she's gonna go on vacation. And you know what? I actually have a gun. So yeah, I'm just gonna kill her.
Hey, can we talk for a second?
Yeah, sure. What do you
All right. So I just got out of a session with Mr. Podar, and he has a clear plan to murder his girlfriend. He had mentioned a knife and a gun. I think we should tell someone.
No, don't do anything. He denied it, and he has not been going to his session, so we should let it go.
I disagree, but you're the boss.
Yeah, we should let it go.
Podar's therapist, Dr. Lawrence Moore, felt uneasy and decided to contact the UC Berkeley campus police. Moore told campus police that Podar was thinking about killing Tarasoff and that he was possibly armed. He also mentioned that he believed Podar was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. Podar was detained by police but was ultimately let go since he appeared entirely rational. Once Tarasoff was back from her vacation in Brazil, Podar went to her house. However, he was met by her mother. She told him she was not there and proceeded to tell him to leave. Later that night, he returned, armed with a pellet gun and a butcher's knife, to see if Tarasoff was there. Unfortunately, she was home. He pleaded with Tarasoff to come outside just so he can talk to her. Tarasoff saw the weapons and screamed.
Hey,
Podar then shot Tarasoff. Tarasoff bolted out of her house only to have Podar chase after her. He eventually caught up to her, stabbing her to death. He then returned to her house and proceeded to call the police.
What's your emergency?
I just stabbed my girlfriend.
Today, the court is seeing case number 3475 in the criminal trial of Mr. Podar. I would like the defendants to begin pleading their case.
Your Honor, my client is pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. At the time of the act, he was not in a clear mental state. He had been going to therapy for behavioral issues for several months, and several therapists had given him the preliminary diagnosis of schizophrenia.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now move to the prosecuting side.
I'm the prosecutor for the Tarasoff family, and I'd like to present evidence that Mr. Podar was not in a state of insanity at the time of the murder. He knew what he was going to do to Ms. Tarasoff. He planned for 2 months, and he came to her house one time to come kill her, realized she was not there, and left, only later to come back that night to finish out his plan. He outlined his plan to his therapist and planned for 2 whole months. He was able to go out, gather different murder weapons, and waited for her to arrive home. He had a clear plan, and that shows he had a clear mind. This was a premeditated murder, and he must be charged as such. Thank you.
Thank you. We've now heard from psychologist Dr. Moore, forensic psychologist on the defendant's side, as well as the prosecuting side. The jury will now go into deliberation, and we'll come back with a verdict when we are finished.
Order in the court. This case was brought here to the Supreme Court on behalf of the plaintiffs, Ms. Tarasoff's parents, to determine whether the following parties have warranted a failure to warn a potential victim. However, from this suit arose a larger matter of overall legality within the psychological world, of whether or not the psychologist has the duty or ability to warn a potential victim of a threat made against them by a client during a therapy session. On this topic, we have established a ruling based on the reasoning of this. The judgment of the therapist in diagnosing emotional disorders and in predicting whether a patient presents a serious danger of violence is comparable to the judgment which doctors and professionals must regularly render under accepted rules of responsibility. On the basis of this specific case, although Dr. Moore and Dr. Powelson were not physicians of Ms. Tarasoff, they nonetheless had a duty of care to her that arose out of their special relationship with Mr. Podar. As physicians treating a mentally ill patient, the doctors had a duty to use reasonable care to warn Ms. Tarasoff of the potential danger posed to her by Mr. Podar. Also, as a second liability, the doctor's bungled attempt to confine Mr. Podar further deterred him from continuing to seek mental treatment, which aggravated the danger to Ms. Tarasoff even further. With all of that being said, we, the Supreme Court, present our ruling as such. When a therapist determines, or pursuant to the standards of his profession should determine, that his patient presents a serious danger of violence to another, he incurs an obligation to use reasonable care to protect the intended victim against such danger. Thank you.
In the end, Podar never served time for the murder of Tarasoff. He was sent back to India, where he started a new life with a wife and kids. Although Tarasoff was never able to continue her life and follow her aspiration, her name lives on with the Tarasoff rule, a therapist's duty to mourn.